Hello, I'm Jackie Tomes and welcome to the latest episode of the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. And on this show, we're having open conversations about building property businesses that create cash flow and freedom from people who've been there and done it. So for us, we've gone from startup to over £16 million of deals done in under 10 years. And along the way, created what we've termed the holiday every 6 weeks lifestyle. So on the show, we're talking about everything, the highs, the lows, more on the lows and the lessons, everything from big picture strategy and maximising your potential right down to practical solutions. So we've heard from feedback from others that it's a very unique property podcast, taking a very different perspective on the journey and the challenges. So welcome if this is your first time joining us. And now today I am joined by an incredible lady, Katrina Jones, who has built not one but three incredible companies and has been through the whole journey of ups and downs to get there. So we're talking today about how she's done that. And for me, the real magic was in her, what I would call business growth hack, about the comfort zone and how you go through your comfort zone to really find out where that golden nugget of information is to help you really move through to the next level quicker. So a really amazing conversation. You're really going to love this. So without further ado, here's me and Katrina Jones. Hello, Kat.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Like we've not caught up in so long, and we just had an amazing starter before we've even hit record. So I'm just so blessed to be here with you today. And I just think it's just so inspiring what you have achieved in terms of, like, you've built an amazing rent to rent portfolio that's then gone on to then ultimately training other people and helping them to do it. And you've just achieved such amazing results in terms of business. But the way that you've done it is not normal. It's like very different. And I think I would call you a really heart-led person. So I just think I'm so excited to explore today that intersection between, personal growth and doing things from a good place and what that means for business success. So thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's always my favorite time when we catch up.
It's awesome. So we've just been talking about like where we guide the conversation today, and ultimately we're talking about the transformation that you've been through, which is from where so many of us have been. I've been there. You're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're trying to do too many things, and it just basically leads you to a point that is really not a very nice place to be. And now being where you are, like free from a financial perspective, free from a location perspective, but probably even more so than that, free and more free from a mindset perspective. So I think that's the overall journey that we're looking at. But we've just been talking before this about what's the real thing to focus on today in terms of that journey, and it's about discomfort. So maybe you want to start there. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the conversation we had before we hit record was epic. And we were just sharing that when it comes to true growth, the only time it really happens is when we're fully out of our comfort zone. And so the individuals whose companies and bank balances and impact on the world or whatever is most important to them, the ones who seem to manage to exponentially grow that are the ones that grow exponentially themselves through constantly being on that edge, constantly in discomfort. And I find discomfort so exciting because I know when I'm there, I'm going somewhere I've never been before, hence why it's so uncomfortable. And that's when we become someone we've never been, and we can create results that we've never created. So I believe as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, it's the only place really to operate if we really want serious results. It's the juiciest place to be.
It totally is. And I think it's interesting because I feel like we all just kind of imagine that you kind of get to this point maybe, or at least I certainly did in the past. Like, ultimately success is getting to a place that you feel totally comfortable. Like, that's just why I'm doing all of this. And then you kind of get to that place of like comfort and you're like, no, this isn't it. Like, I've definitely missed something here along the way.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's a beautiful balance to there's definitely something really special about every time we come out of a growth phase and we can stop and take a breath and say, okay, let's celebrate, let's recalibrate, let's just take a moment at this whole new level and breathe. And we're ready if we choose to, and growth is the game we choose to play. Let's go again, like where's the next edge and where's the next level? And knowing that it's a choice, I think, is really empowering as well, because no one has to do anything. But if you want to grow and you want your bank balance to grow, and like we say, your business or your impact to continuously expand, the only way to do that is for you to do it, because your business is always going to be an extension of you.
Yes. And that's a scary thing when we finally realize that. It's like, okay, all the problems in my business, they're actually the problems that I have to overcome. We think we can somehow separate them.
Yeah, but how liberating is it? Because you just get to look at the business and go, oh my God, everything that's not working is a reflection of me. So if I just fix up what's going on over here, or grow through and get over my shit, then this is going to go to another level. And it's 100% in my control. The most liberating thing in the world. And there's also so much freedom that comes with it, because it takes the kind of the part out of it that has us think that it's external, like the problem is the people or the clients or the business model. And when we realize it's never ever that, it's like, oh my God, this is great news. So it might feel like shit for 5 minutes, but then it's like, oh, this is really exciting actually.
So tell me about when you started to have some of these realizations. Like, maybe we can go back to some of those early days around, like, when you started to feel really stressed out or really overwhelmed. Like, what's that journey that you've gone on to have those realizations?
Yes, you've used the perfect word. It was stress that led me to the realizations. And there was a point in my business where, as I grew the rent-to-rent company, I realized that I think I had around 7 staff, and the portfolio had grown really quickly over the previous couple of years. And I just couldn't seem to get to the next stage. And I could see all of these incredible business people with huge, like, multi-million-pound companies, and I didn't get it. I'm like, I physically don't understand how they could possibly get there from here. How? I don't understand. And so I actually hired 2 different mentors at that time. One supported me with systemization, which was such a confusing topic for me, because I'd never been shown or explained systems before. That was one of the best things I've ever understood and learned to do in my entire life for business, was systemization, and therefore being able to create a company that's completely hands-free. And the other mentor supported me in management, how to really powerfully performance manage a team for growth and expansion. And it was those 2 things that then enabled me to end up running 3 property companies, the owned portfolio, the training company for rent-to-rent, and the rent-to-rent company itself, literally spending, a couple of hours a day on it, living in Dubai, traveling and having events run while I'm in a different country, like seeing all the photos hit socials and seeing all the testimonials come through and new properties being signed constantly. Like, it was just, the growth was incredible. And that was a point where I went, okay, now I see how they do it. Now we just copy and paste this as we go. So it was definitely stress that led me to understand what needed to happen to create the actual opposite, which was just complete peace.
And so what were some of the things that you kind of learned that helped you to embrace that? Or what things did you see?
I think the biggest thing of all actually was that because I didn't have systems in my business, I was leaving things to luck, common sense, people's memory, and then it was really hard to performance manage people, because we were kind of just like riffing off them just doing the best they could with what they had. I mean, looking back, in all honesty, it was a shit show. Ridiculous way to run a company. But I'd tell someone something once verbally, and then their entire that one task in their entire role would be left to, them remembering what I said. And it was just crazy. When I look back, it was crazy. When I learned to systemize, it was like, brilliant. This is how the role is done. This is the entire role. These are each individual tasks within the role. This is how each individual task is done. They get trained, they sign it off. I watch one time, or their line manager watches one time. We sign it off, and then off we go. There's spot checks, there's audits, there's regular performance reviews, and people get managed up, managed out if necessary, which hopefully is not the case, but sometimes that's how it goes. And it's just black and white. There's no emotion. There's nothing personal about it. It's clean, it's crisp, it's seamless. People don't need to remember anything. And I think one of the most exciting things was how much the staff loved it, because they're like, oh, thank God for this. I don't have to remember or, struggle through or panic I'm going to forget, or like, it literally is a done for you thing. And all they have to do is step in and operate the machinery, which gives them a lot of freedom and confidence as well.
And how does the theme of discomfort play in during this phase? Because it almost sounds like it was too chaotic, which sounds very stressful and probably quite uncomfortable. Yeah. And then it got a heck of a lot better. Where does the theme of discomfort, did it like subside for a while and then come back in again? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think the discomfort comes every time we do something new. So initially the discomfort was in, oh, I can't do this. I can't expand further than this with this chaos. Then there was the discomfort of, I don't understand what systems are. And how am I going to get my head around it? Like, I don't get it. So then there was the discomfort of being a student again and learning how to fully systemize a company. Then from there was then the discomfort of, now I've got to roll this out to an entire team that are like, what are you talking about? Why are we going to start having to write these things down and following it, and everything's changing? And then, of course, there's the discomfort of, as the team then take on or don't take on the new culture of the company, having to create redundancies, having to performance manage people out of the company. It's just constant discomfort, but it's such a good feeling, because the magic that's going to come from it and the expansion that's going to come from it. So yeah, most of it was uncomfortable.
You've explained that really nicely. And like, what does that mean? Let's maybe go to that moment that you're realizing that some people don't fit the culture anymore. Like, you're dealing with human beings, and like you want to care and you want to help. Like, talk to me about like some of the specifics that you had to work through there. Like, what did that discomfort mean? Like, what sort of thoughts did you have?
I think the most uncomfortable thing was seeing certain members of staff have the new systems and have the new KPIs put in place, but they were really comfortable with the old way of operating, which was, really loose. And so, of course, the gift was in seeing that the people that were going to align with the new version of the company were the ones that, much like myself, were into the discomfort. They kind of liked the shake-up. They were ready for what was on the other side. They bought into the vision. They understood that for us all as a team to go to a whole nother level, we were all going to go through this transition phase, which was going to be uncomfortable but incredibly liberating. And also for the staff to know that once their systems were in place, that gave them the scope to grow within the company and then train their own team members and hire their own, or for us to hire staff that would then be able to support them. So some people like change and some people don't. And I think it's having the patience to follow the full performance review structure to really give people the best chance. But at the end of the day, if it's not working for them and they're not working the systems and therefore the company's not working, it can only really go one way. And in the early days, I found that really uncomfortable. But then I quickly realized that if someone's unhappy in the job and is unaligned with the culture and doesn't want to work in the way you want them to work, you're kind of setting everyone free. And usually there's quite a sense of relief when people are like, okay, I'll go and find somewhere to work where it goes the way I want it to go, and and that's cool.
Yeah, you're right. It's like this, it's just being able to let go of stuff and not hang on to any way of working or any particular people as saying like this is how it is, and just knowing that everyone's got to find their own way, and by us anyone clinging on to anything too strongly, it's not in the best interest of anyone. I think that's quite a big perspective shift.
Yeah, 100% agree.
And so then you've gotten through that, you get the company to a point that it's all working well, the people are the right people, the systems are in place, you've got a lot more free time. What happens next?
That's a good question. I did some traveling and moved around, and just I took a moment. Like I said earlier on, it's really important when we reach a new level that we've never reached before to take a moment to reflect, to recharge, to celebrate, to just breathe it in. So I did that for a long time and I really enjoyed it. I started writing my first book. I got involved with a couple of social enterprises and charities, and it was just really chill. Built a little bit more of the asset portfolio, and just took the time to decide, what do I want to do next that is in most alignment with the person I've become on this journey. What's going to make the biggest difference to people? What's going to have the most power? And what am I going to enjoy the most? So that was a transition period in itself, to be honest.
And then, so would you say you were in your comfort zone during that phase, or was there discomfort that you were having to work through as well?
Oh no, yeah, I was chill. One of the moments where I was like, there's been enough discomfort for the last 5 years. I'm just going to have a breath and chill. Got myself a personal trainer, just all the things that I kind of put to one side while I focus lots on business. I gave myself permission to then enjoy all of the things, all of the reasons I was doing it for. So yeah, I wasn't massively out of my comfort zone. I always love to push myself. So anything from training to traveling, like I'm always looking for some kind of edge somewhere. Otherwise I'll get really bored and frustrated and feel a bit like death warmed up. But nowhere near the discomfort of building the companies, for sure.
Okay, and nice. And so you're having a lovely time, you're exploring things, you're enjoying the space. Does that change, or has that kind of remained the kind of state? Like, how has that progressed?
Yeah, no, I get bored quite quickly. So it wasn't long until I decided, okay, we've had enough of a rest. It's been gorgeous. I've really enjoyed it. Now it's time to grow again and look for the next edge. So yeah.
And how was that? It sounds like you're really seeking out discomfort now, and you're actively trying to find ways to, I think you said, be the smallest fish in the smallest fish in the pond, right? As soon as you're the biggest fish, you've got to find a new pond. Like, what does that mean, and how is that playing out in your life?
Yeah, so I decided to look at what I'd built, and I hired a business coach. I always have at least one business coach in my life. Sometimes I may have two different types depending on what I'm looking for, because strategy can be incredibly niche. And so to have a coach that understands the literal nuts and bolts of the strategy is very helpful. And then quite often I'll have someone who's a lot bigger picture, who's they can kind of see, 5 or 10 years ahead, as it were. And so I actually went from the UK to Australia and spent some time with who I believe to be one of the best business coaches in the world. And their advice to me, which was very uncomfortable, was, if you want to go next level, like if you want your impact to be so monumental and you want to make such a difference, then running 3 companies probably isn't the answer. And I got really defensive. I came back to the UK, and for about a month I was furious, and I was like, what do you expect me to do then? I'm just going to close the other 2 down. Like, there was a lot of drama. And then something really beautiful happened. He spoke with me about 4 weeks later and said, what's the decision? What are you up to? And at the exact same time, a large national company reached out to me and said, have you ever considered selling your company? And I sat there and I thought, absolutely 100%. I have never considered selling any of my companies, because the way that I was trained in property is, you have a handful of different strategies and they're all doing their thing at the same time. But this business coach was another level. And I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to take this advice because I think it's golden. And so I responded to the company and reached out to someone who I trust very much in the industry, John Paul, and said, look, if I was considering selling one of my companies, what would be the best way to go about it? And he gave me the most phenomenal advice and route to selling, which I followed. And I'll never forget the day that I found out how much the company was worth, because I was like, pardon? Do you want to run that past me one more time? And I was glad I was sitting down, because the truth is, Jackie, I didn't realize what I'd built, because I was building for cash flow, not to sell. So we were just growing and growing and growing and expanding, and just focused on the cash flow, which was being banked to purchase assets. And like the whole structure was flawless about what the company was worth. And I was like, okay, this is really exciting. Also uncomfortable, because I had a fair bit of identity wrapped up in the company. I kind of become that. But short version is, I decided to sell one of the 3 companies, which turned out to be a dream come true that I didn't even know I had. It was one of the best experiences of my entire life, and there was a shed load of discomfort, like months and months and months of due diligence with the most phenomenal buyers who I've truly fallen in love with. Like the company was always family, and I feel like that hasn't really changed. Like, they know I'm here anytime I need them, even though they don't need me. And yeah, it was freaking epic. And so that's given me the time now to put all of my attention on the one company, which is the training company. We've just had our biggest 6 weeks in the history of the last 10 years, which is just testament. It goes to show this incredible coach was right. When you focus on one thing, it can't not expand exponentially, because all of your energy, all of your time, all of your resource, all of your passion, your fire, your vision, like the whole thing is on one thing. So that's where we're at today.
Wow. That's like, I mean, we're totally on the same page. Like, we're banging on about this all the time. So it's always nice to hear different people's perspective of coming to that conclusion of just being like, the more you focus, the easier and more fun everything becomes. And what were some of those specific things then that you had to work through within yourself to be able to allow yourself to just have that level of focus?
My addiction to overwhelm.
Oh, that's deep. Okay, go on. What does this mean?
Yeah. Oh, I loved being busy. I loved it. I got my kicks from it. I felt important and worthy. I'm like, I've got so much to do. There's all these.
I'm so busy. I'm so important.
Yeah. I'm needed by all these people. And then like you let go of things and you systemize things. You're like, oh shit, no one really needs me that much at all. But it's a really fun process. The discomfort for that part of the journey was, yeah, my unconscious sabotage pattern, an addiction to both overwhelm and distraction. Just being really easily distracted. I learned on the journey that usually when we have a plan B, it's because we don't have full conviction on plan A. And so I had to stop and go, okay, where am I using the other companies as safety nets rather than this is actually really best for the greatest good of all? Then I had to go even deeper and realize that, I felt a lot more important and valuable and worthy being able to say I ran 3 companies. Like, not everyone can run 3 companies, but most people can run 1. And if I'm just running 1, what does that mean about me? Like, it felt like a step back, which obviously it wasn't. It was a huge step forward. So I did go on a very deep and explorative journey in that phase, which, of course, again, I came out the other side way stronger. And it was so nice to free up some space, because it wasn't just the time that it took, because it didn't take much time, because I'd got it to the point where they were all hands-free, but it was the energy, it was the headspace. Obviously, I was still often thinking about these things and having these ideas, and to have that energy constantly pulled between 3 companies, it didn't take 3 times more time. It was like 10 times more time. To wake up and just be thinking about one thing, doing one thing well, becoming the best in the world at the one thing, has been one of the most freeing things I've ever done.
And what tools did you use along the way to facilitate that, like looking inward? It sounds like it's quite like a mysterious thing to go through. So I'm intrigued what you've used to help you to do that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd also just like to caveat, for anyone that's in the place that I was or has chosen a different way, I don't believe there's a right way and a wrong way. This has been a huge part of my journey as well. I have mentors that have 3 different property strategies, like the 70-20-10, and they're crushing it. And I respect it and I honor it, and it works for them. So if anyone's listening to this going, oh, hold on a minute, I've got 2 or 3 strategies, there's nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely fine. It was just my own personal journey. I got to the point where I realized, in order for any of these to go like to a whole nother level, I needed to give it my everything.
And also there was, like, by the sounds of it, loads of personal crap basically tied up in the fact that there were 3. And actually it was more like the process of letting go of one. There was actually more value in that to you, because it brought up a load of unseen demons basically that were ruling your life that you weren't aware of. So actually, even if you'd got maybe half of the money that you ended up with, maybe that was still worth it, because it forced you to address part of yourself that you weren't actually seeing.
Totally. The freedom and the growth that's come from it has been priceless. The funds were a side bonus, for sure. It's a really great question, actually, because one of the things, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but as you've asked, I will do, is I've been studying and practicing for the last 5 years now, a whole new set of methodologies to really fast track the personal growth journey. So I actually have something that I launched recently, which is called the Self-Mastery Program. And it's designed for CEOs, leaders, and entrepreneurs that want to take themselves on and take who they are to levels that they, at this point in time, probably can't even fathom. Because as they do, their external world will reflect that. And the growth in terms of relationships, finances, happiness, health, there's no limit to any of the things, but it starts with us. And having been on that journey myself for years and years, I mean, I won't begin to list the things I've done because it will go on, but there's been many, many things. And I now do spend a decent chunk of my time doing that with entrepreneurs, CEOs, and leaders, because it's the work. I believe it's the work. When we go to work on ourselves, there is no greater gift we can give ourselves and the people around us, because the impact benefits everybody, everything. So yeah, there's been a lot. I've gone deep as hell, and it's been the best thing I have ever done in my whole life. I'm so grateful for the journey. And lots of discomfort.
And lots of discomfort. So yeah, I mean, like, give us maybe one example of what that looks like, because it all sounds very mysterious, and I'm sure there's some very practical things that people will have heard of, and we talk about a lot of stuff on this podcast anyway that is more alternative, and I think that's what people I think that ability for people to learn, that's what people like us are doing to help us to master ourselves. Give us one example.
Yeah, okay, amazing. So I took on a coach that had nothing to do with business, nothing to do with finance. On the surface, had nothing to do with business or finance, and somebody who was incredibly far forward on their self-mastery journey, and I took them on as my coach, and they're still my coach today. They're phenomenal. And through it was just a group mentorship program, with a little bit of one-on-one here and there. And through the program, it was really beautiful because, and I'm still on there 5 years later. I don't know what it would take for me to leave, but because the group and the coach are constantly growing, the growth available is never ending. And so just looking at the areas in my life that weren't working, looking at where in my life do I want to be somewhere other than where I am, but I can't freaking seem to get past where I am? Where am I really committed to getting a result, but no matter what I've done up until this point in time, the freaking result's not there? Where am I banging my head against a brick wall? Where do I know I want my life to look one way, but it keeps freaking not looking that way? Just being really brutally honest with where I'm at. And then having that person reflect back to me where I'm in my own way. What is it about my beingness, i.e. the shit I'm doing or not doing, or the subconscious patterns that are keeping me stuck, that is having my reality stuck in a way that is not the way I want my reality to be? And by having those patterns, those habits, or those beliefs, those limiting beliefs, reflected back to me by someone who could see the things that I just couldn't see. Once they're reflected back, it's like being stuck around the face with a wet fish. At first it really hurts and you're like, ouch,
it stinks.
Yeah. And then you go away and you have a little rage or a little cry or whatever it is, and you have just this like moment, and then you go, oh my god, they're so freaking right. And thank God for them, because we can't see our own shit. That's why we have coaches and mentors, because if we could see what was in our way from getting us from where we are to where we want to be, we wouldn't feel the need to listen to this podcast. We wouldn't be looking to take the next step anywhere, and we'd be exactly where we wanted to be in life. But I think our ego likes to think that, the reason we're not where we are is not because of us. It's not me, it's this thing, or it's that.
It's everyone else.
Yeah, and it's the strategy, or it's the city, or it's the economy, and it's effing well not. And when we can break out of that and look at what is holding us back from getting to where we deserve to be and desire to be, that's when it becomes uncapped, and that's when we fly. So it's the constant reflection of me going, okay, what can't I see today? What limiting belief am I not even aware that I'm running? What pattern or habit am I not aware that I'm stuck in? Where am I resisting change? Where am I resisting uncomfort? What can I not see about me that is holding me back from my dream life? Give it to me, tell it to me straight. And because with that awareness, then we have a choice. But when we're not aware of what's in our way, we don't have a choice. We're just stuck the way that we are. And I've got goosebumps, because I truly believe that there is nothing more powerful on this planet than personal growth, than dropping and leaving behind the shit that's not ours. We got fed it from somewhere, or it got programmed in from somewhere, and it's just got us stuck in a rut. When we can reprogram in alignment with our desires and the most abundance and the most power, there's no greater journey to go on. And we get to give that gift to our children, to our peers. There's no ending to the gift. It's the best thing in the world. So I hope that demystifies it and answers the question.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And I think there's just so much in it, right? Which is why you're kind of like not wanting to go down too many rabbit holes, because we could be here for a whole day talking about these things, and you scratch the surface basically. And really so much of it, you have to start to experience it yourself to understand it, because it's quite hard to to grasp onto when you're not going through it. But yeah, for me, that realization as well of just like, oh my God, all of the way that I have seen my whole life and the story that I've told myself, it's not true. It's just like I chose a way to respond to that, which actually was really not helpful in so many circumstances. And then just starting to shine that light of awareness to go, okay, wow, if I'd have looked at it this way, that would have felt totally different, and it wouldn't have held me back in that way, and I could have done so much more. And it's not to say that I should have done it differently, like that's the journey that I've had to go on, but it is so liberating when you suddenly go, I've just got to stop worrying about everything else out there and just start focusing purely on what's in here and to move me forwards. And I think what was also interesting is what you said about someone will shine the light on to you for you because you can't see it because it's so hard to see in ourselves. And what your initial reaction might be like rage or sadness or fear. And I think what's really good is that you're really aware of that and you're like processing it. Like you're not hiding from it. You're not pushing it away or pushing it down. You're like, I'm just going to cry for a bit, or I'm just going to be like, I'm just going to go and shout in the field for a bit. Like, that's just what I've got to go through. And then it just gives you that opportunity to say, actually, you know what, that was like an old version of me reacting to that news. And actually, if I take a completely fresh perspective, that makes sense to me. And then you're moving forward in a different way. It's not the old you, it's the new you.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think I could probably give a really good example because I'm really grateful that you pointed out it's a bit like mystical, which I don't mean it to sound, but to relate it to business. as an example of how our external world is a reflection of our internal world. We think that the problem is the problem, and it's not. And what I mean by that is, let's take, for example, when I started trying to systemize the business, writing how to do something on a piece of paper and giving it to someone to follow, and either they do it or they don't do it, is something that can be done by a 4-year-old. There's nothing complicated or difficult about writing a system and asking someone to follow it. What comes up for us, or what's in our way of that, we think has something to do with the person or the system, and it's not. So 2 of the deeper things that came up for me was my need to control and always be in control. The belief that no one can do it as well as me. The belief that if I let go of something really bad could happen. The belief that the company is going to fall apart if I dare let someone else do anything. That belief has nothing to do with the company or the staff. That's my shit. Because somewhere in my past, this thing has happened and now I'm projecting it onto my freaking company that really deserves better, you know? And so when we work through that stuff and understand why we're nervous about X, Y, or Z, and we're then given the tools of how to overcome that really powerfully, then we can start to practice gently. Okay, I see my need to control, my lack of trust in others, which is a really deep thing for people. Not trusting people has people so stuck in relationships, in business. But when we can deal with that deep lack of trust in self and others, and that is the work, that is a separate conversation of how we do that. And they're the methodologies that I've been blessed with, that I now coach people on. Once we can drop that, heal it, transcend it, whatever you want to freaking call it, suddenly there's nothing in the way of you writing a system, give it to a person, performance managing them, either training them up or letting them go and building the company. It was never to do with the systems and the person. You know, it's always something that's going on within us. But the beauty of it is, when we deal with that thing that's got us stuck, it doesn't just impact the systems in the business. That, for example, the deepening of trust, or the letting go of having to control everything, which is the thing that gives you the most wrinkles the quickest, by the way. When we can let go of that shit, can you imagine how that goes in our relationships, in our friendships, in our trying new things, in our allowing stuff to flow for once? Like it impacts everything. And that's why the journey is exponential, because firework display, and it's like, whoa. And then every area of your life, you see this level up, this like rising and this growth, and you're like, whoa. And then you'll look back and something will happen, and there'll be this sliding doors moment where you go, oh, something happens, and you'll do something and you go, I've got goosebumps again. You go, the old me couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have got that result, but I'm not that person anymore. Now I can operate from here, from a higher level of consciousness, awareness, power. And now these results are coming instead. And then how can you not be like, where's the next level?
Oh, what else can I not see? Oh, you've described that so beautifully, Kat. I think it's really nice to bring it almost full circle back to the systems and processes as well. It's true. Like I see it in the people that we work with, like, there's only so much you can talk about stuff. It's like, okay, so here's the system and process. Here's what you don't know about how to do it. Let me explain to you how to do it. And then if the person doesn't do it, okay, then maybe there's something else they didn't quite know. But when you go through that enough times, you're like, it's nothing to do with the system and the process. It's all to do with you. And basically the I don't know enough and need to know more about systems and processes is the hard road to the answer. The easy road to the answer is, look what you've explained there, looking within and going, okay, I'm a bit of a control freak. That scares me. How does that fear feel? What do I need to process and figure out and work through to let go? To just do it. And then you can do it in like 15 minutes, what would have taken you days or weeks or years, or maybe you never get there.
Yeah, but probably never. Because unless we have some really powerful facilitation or really great coach or mentor to take us through that process, because the process can be different for everybody. You know, each person will process it in their own way and grow through that in their own way. That's the key, is finding that person that can take you on that journey, because knowing makes no difference. Like, to go, oh, I'm a control freak, great. Well, that's another thing I can just beat myself up about every day and get frustrated about. So it's identifying, there's just to it. There's the identification that actually there's something here stopping me that's not about the thing. Then there's the second thing, which is the difference between the 1% of earners and influencers in the world and not, which is the willingness to then do the work. That's the key. And then it's the courage and the bravery to take yourself on and freaking do it. And if you can live with those three principles in the forefront of your mind, where your life and your relationships and your business and your bank balance and your potential can get to is exponential. There is no limit. There is literally no end. The universe does never stop expanding. We're a part of that. We're meant to operate in the same way. We forgot the tools. There was a time in the past where we all had the tools and then shit happened and now we all forgot the tools. And it's like, let's go back to the conversation of self and actually go through what we need to go through to get to where we want to be. Because people deserve it. They desire it and they deserve it. There's no need to be stuck in this day and age. It's old-fashioned to be stuck.
Thank you so much for joining us on this latest episode of Property Lifestyle Mastery. Wonderful to have that conversation with Kat. If you want to connect with Kat off the back of that episode today, if you go into the show notes, there are some links for how you can connect. So Kat has a rent-to-rent introduction series to show you what's possible using rent-to-rent, which is what her expertise is. You can also book a complimentary 60-minute consultation to discuss financial freedom or self-mastery or both. And there's also Kat's Instagram profile there as well. So do reach out to Kat if you want to connect. If you've enjoyed this episode and you are new to Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast, you may want to check out episode 15, where Dom and Dave are talking about accessing your unlimited potential to transform not just your business, but your whole life. So yeah, fair warning, this one really may enable you to achieve your goals way quicker than you imagine. And it's a lovely launch pad after off the back of what that conversation has been with Kat, to put some more meat on the bones around what that transformation can really look like. So until then, we'll be live again next Friday with the next episode at 8 a.m. So until then, have a great week ahead.